We're discussing our future on the ballot, talking to exciting candidates for office from across the country. Today, we're talking with Georgette Gómez, who is running for California's 53rd Congressional District in San Diego, California. The seat is open for the first time in 20 years, as Representative Susan Davis announced last year that she would not be seeking re-election. Georgette is endorsed by Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Elizabeth Warren. Georgette's opponent in the general election is Sarah Jacobs, heiress to the billion-dollar Qualcomm fortune, and a former advisor to Hillary Clinton. Georgette, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, John. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. So Georgette, you came into politics as a community organizer around environmental issues. How has your experience as an organizer affected your approach to politics?
Yeah, well, now I'm the council president for the city of San Diego, the 8th largest city in our nation. And definitely when we were able to win that campaign, even though we were outspent and I was the underdog in that campaign, but we definitely used the power of the community and we organized and we were able to succeed. And now I happen to be the council president, and I've been using the skills of an organizer. It's just for me, organizing is always something that you do no matter where you are. Just finding the opportunities to achieve and move forward that agenda of justice, of inclusion, really has been my commitment. And now that I'm, at City Hall, at the city of San Diego, I've been really working the council and making sure that there's finding commonalities or finding ways in which we can push that agenda of justice, of inclusion in our city. And we've been successful. We've been able to do things that have not been done before in the city. And definitely it's because of that organizing skill, that background that I bring to City Hall that really has allowed us to build within inside, but also keep a close connection to the outside community members and making sure that they're linked to what we're doing at City Hall. And there's always a constant communication between inside and outside.
So we talk a lot about proximity on this show. So being an organizer, having an organizing background, how are you communicating with people? How are people feeling like they're involved in city council processes?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I have had many community town hall meetings in the district. One of the biggest things that the city council does is the adoption of the city budget that really sets the projection of what to expect for the rest of the year. So ever since I got elected, I've been bringing the discussions of our budget to the community, making sure that they're aware, they understand what's being proposed. They give me direction of where to focus and how to push, right? And I also encourage community members to not only stop their engagement at that meeting, because the city council has its own process. It takes several months, daily daily city council meetings. So, and we're constantly looking at every single department, and it's very lengthy process. Not a lot of community members participate, unfortunately. So we've been trying to get them to understand what's going on. And also, if they care about wanting us to do more funding for Park and Rec, we let them know, okay, this is the day that we're going to hear that particular department. Make sure that you plugged in, that you share your opinions. So we've been doing a lot of that. We've been breaking down the discourse at the community level, but also making sure that their community members are equipped with the tools to be able to participate. And it's been going very well.
Thank you, Georgette. So you're running for Congress now, which is it's a huge race.
Mhm.
You come from a working class background. Your opponent is a child of a billionaire. How has the class dynamic impacted your race?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely there. I can tell you that, all the money that I've raised to ensure that we're communicating with voters, that we're getting our message out. I practically have raised every single dollar that has been spent, unlike my opponent who basically just writes herself a check and there's her campaign. I think personally has spent about $5 million of her own money. My team tells me that actually this race is the highest of any other congressional race is the most costly for a single self-funder. So she literally is the top self-funder and really trying to, what I call buying a seat. She's been shopping around for a bit here in our region. This is her second attempt, and she did it in 2018. She's trying to do it here. Now her grandparents also have a separate PAC for her that is purely funded by grandpa and grandma. So there's a lot of money that is being spent by the Jacobs family. But, at the end of the day, as a grassroots organizer, I'm a believer in the power of the people. And I'm a believer that this district, a district that is a working class district, a district that I have spent my entire life in trying to improve it, that message is coming across very strong. People know it. The folks that have been endorsing us are incredible fighters for justice for working families, and that too, people are acknowledging that that's very significant. And so, at the end of the day, as long as we're doing all that we can do from our end, which we are, it's gonna shine through.
Thanks, Georgette. So I'd like to talk about what you will do in Congress for the people. You've spoken about the people and being connected, and folks are dealing with a lot right now, especially during a global pandemic. So earlier this month, landlords began filing for evictions in San Diego, threatening to make thousands of people homeless who have been unable to pay rent during the pandemic. Will you support rent and mortgage cancellation legislation at the federal level, if elected, to ensure that no one becomes homeless as a result of COVID-19?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you, John, that I've been working quite a bit on making sure that that the local government's doing everything possible to support our community members, especially especially the community members that have been living by paycheck by paycheck before the pandemic, and now there's no paycheck. So I knew that that because of the economy being impacted the way that it is, that there were going to be a lot of folks that were going to be unemployed, and that literally has what has occurred. And in that same framework, I knew that that meant that the same people that are now not getting a paycheck are people that don't have a big savings account. So it's not like they're able to tap into something that they don't have. So how are they going to be paying their bills, because the bills are still coming? So I was actually one of the first legislators at the local level to introduce an eviction moratorium banning evictions. And we led the effort. I introduced an ordinance that protected renters and also our small business community as well, because I knew that they too were going to get impacted. And then as soon as we got the relief from the federal government, the only one that has come, we allocated some resources to create a rent relief program. And we just added $5 more million just a few weeks ago. I think we're at $20 million. We need way more. I've been communicating with our legislation to ensure that they're pushing hard, and they'll do, I'm hoping that they can do everything in their power to get another relief package moving forward, because the community, the people here in the ground are hurting and they need support. And there's a lot of worry that, if they're not getting the support from government, then what are they going to do? So I'm going to be a strong champion for our community members, making sure that they're protected, making sure that they're not losing their homes and ending up in the streets, making sure that we're recovering the economy, but we need to do it differently. We need to address income inequality in this nation, because we're seeing the ripple effect of having these imbalances. Healthcare reform needs to occur. In the middle of the pandemic, this is an opportunity to say, hey, our system that we currently have, it's not working. It's not inclusive. It's not accessible. So we need to move forward in developing universal healthcare. This is the only way that we're going to be able to truly create a system that is accessible and available to all. So there's a lot that we need to do in this nation, and I'm running because I want to make sure there's a strong voice of the people in Congress representing Southern California.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning healthcare. What's your vision for the future of healthcare? There's been a lot of debate around this lately.
Yeah, well, I stated that, right now, we're seeing the broken system that we knew before. I mean, we knew that it was a system that is not inclusive, that is a system that even if you're able to access what's available, it's still costly. So really, it's still based on how much money one has, and it shouldn't be a luxury. I mean, we're talking about healthcare. I'm a strong believer that healthcare should be a human right. There's a few things that I think are necessary to have a healthy, vibrant life, and healthcare is one of those. Access to healthcare in terms of making sure that that the infrastructure is in our neighborhoods. We have underserved communities that don't have clinics or don't have a hospital, and they have to travel further. That's not accessibility. So we need to ensure as a nation that healthcare hospitals are well equipped, but they're also placed in all their communities. But also making sure that we have a system that is not based on cost. So I'm a true believer in Medicare for all. I think that's the path to go. If it's good for congressional members, why can it be good enough to other rest of the population and their society? We also, as a member of the LGBTQ community, I can tell you that the system that we currently have is not holistic because our trans community members don't have access to the healthcare that they need to do the transition and become their whole self. They have to do that transition and cover it from their own pocket, and that should be included. And there's a lot more to say about the system itself that is not inclusive for the LGBTQ community. We're talking about, and that we're in an environment right now that folks from from Black communities are asking for, restoration, and the healthcare system has not been kind. We haven't put enough resources to do enough research to create a healthcare system that is targeted to the community members. And we need to do more.
So, Georgette, you just mentioned the Black community. One thing the Black community is also concerned about is white supremacy and acts of violence. And I know a lot of people who are, asking questions of what the government's going to do to protect them and thinking about what they need to do to protect themselves. Can you talk about what white supremacy is looking like in San Diego? What's the climate of racism and white supremacy like currently?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely been troublesome here in San Diego, just like in other countries. I think we have someone leading this country that really has allowed for white supremacy, hatred to be more exploited. He's actually has validated, and I think that's dangerous. But it also is, just lifting something that is always been present, but it's been kind of like the silent cancer, right? It's been there and it creeps at times, and right now we're just seeing it left and right. When we saw the demonstrations after George Floyd, you saw the folks from part of the white supremacy groups that were out and about in our communities, taunting the community, being more aggressive and trying to get a reaction, right, a violent reaction. So then that allows them to act. So we've been seeing quite a lot of that in our city, in our region. And as electeds, we need to be outspoken against it and not accept it. I know that because of COVID and the references that the president has made to COVID in terms of the Chinese virus and all of this rhetoric against the AAPI community, we introduced a resolution at the city council to stand up for the community, say we're not going to allow this, we're not going to allow any hatred acts to be targeted to the community. It's not something that we do. So I've been trying to use my platform to really speak up against it and lift our brown, Black, Indigenous communities, our queer communities. This is where we need to be, better, and we really shouldn't stand or be silent on hatred acts that are occurring.
Thanks, Georgette. So I'd like to switch topics a little bit and talk about the existential threat of climate change. You and your opponent both support a Green New Deal. Do you think you're fully aligned on this issue, or are there differences between what you and Sarah Jacobs would like to see from a Green New Deal?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I've learned pretty quickly, John, is, when you're an elected, people like to say everything that people want to hear, right? There's their speaking points, really. Yes, it is true that my opponent and I have been saying kind of almost the same thing, but really, I'm someone that has been fighting environmental racism my entire life. Me starting as a community organizer was around fighting environmental racism, and now as the member of the council, I've been introducing a climate justice agenda. So I'm using every single stage that I've been a part of to really center this discussion about environmental racism, because the climate crisis is real, but we also need to center justice in that conversation. I mean, racism is climate justice. Communities of color have been targeted by the fossil fuel industry. There's no secret as to why refineries are sited in brown and black communities. There's no secret why freeways always are gutting our low income communities, and they happen to be brown and black communities. And that brings fumes. I mean, the community that I was born in, I was surrounded by freeways. My park was literally right underneath the freeway, and right adjacent to it, we have the heavy industrial. So that, to me, I've centered this fight, and will continue to center this fight, because when we talk about inequalities, when we talk about racism, this is what this means. Our communities, our brown and black communities, deserve a healthy environment. They deserve healthy air, clean water, just like any other community. Um, so I have dedicated my entire life, and for me, supporting the Green New Deal it's a natural transition. And but we need to do more. We've been fighting here in the district that I'm trying to represent, to improve our transit system, because the system itself has just been, not supported by electeds. And I've been pushing a strong transit agenda, and it's something that can lead to like less greenhouse gases. We've been moving as the city council. I've been moving our region to be 100% renewable energy by 2035. That's something that I would love to see nationwide. I was the chair of the Metropolitan Transit System, and we just recently adopted a plan to move our buses to 100% zero emission by the year 2040. I'm hoping that we can do it sooner, but that also means that there will be less buses out there that are polluting our communities. And the Port of San Diego is working right now and trying to commit to zero emission trucks that are diesel based, that are polluting our communities in a constant manner. I know California, the governor announced that we're going to be transitioning all vehicles to have them go zero emission. And now the president is trying to sue California for that act. I'm going to be a strong supporter in defending California in the policies that they're trying to move forward to minimize our greenhouse gases. And that really stands because of the record that I've been doing my entire life, as I stated. My opponent does say that she's for the Green New Deal. At the same time, she's investing in fossil fuel industry. She's investing in big banks that are supporting this same industry. So I don't know how one can settle the differences, right? In one hand, I'm making my profits from that investment in the same industries that are killing our planet. But in another hand, in another breath, I'm saying I'm going to stand up against them. I don't know how one can really, how one can really say one when the actions are the opposite.
Thank you, Georgette. So, very important question. So, you and your partner have 3 dogs, and you're also raising chickens. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite chicken?
Ah, well, We have 2 chickens right now. We're maybe thinking of adding a few more, but not sure yet. We said, okay, let's just wait after the election. We have this one. I don't remember the name of the chicken, but we call her Little Legs, because she's got these legs that are almost. It looks like she's got boots. So she's very beautiful. So I really like her, and they're interesting. They have their own personalities.
Right.
They're fun to have them, and very therapeutic.
Yeah,
So
we all
yeah,
need that in this moment.
yes, especially in these times, we need more of that. So it's
Absolutely.
been good. It's been good to be growing our little family here. We just brought in another dog like a week ago.
Yep.
He's 2 months and very energetic. So,
Well, you definitely have your hands full. I'm gonna let you get back to the work, running for office, and raising dogs and chickens.
yes.
Uh, really appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all out there for joining us. This episode will be available as a podcast on Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts. The Appeal is live again at 4 p.m. Eastern Time with The Count, a show about what happens after a close election and in the 77-day period between the close of the polls on November 3rd and the inauguration on January 20th. Follow follow Appeal News on Facebook and The Appeal on Twitter for the latest news. And if you haven't voted or know someone who hasn't, make your plan to vote at www.iwillvote.com. Thanks so much. See you soon, Georgette.
See ya. Thank you so much, John. Have a good one.